Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for even agreeing to do this interview with us. When we first came to this property, we saw that there was this apothecary that had opened, and originally we didn't know what it was. All we knew was that we had to go inside and first of all see who was in there and if they looked like us. Which when we found that out, that was a plus. And so yeah, that was really good. But then we wanted to learn about what an apothecary was, what the goal was, and why someone would want to put it in this area of town. And upon meeting Justin, he kind of talked to us about his background in pharmacy, and he ended up like revealing to us that his parents owned the strip. And I was shocked because I was like, wait, what do you mean like they own the strip? Like they own the gas station part? And he was like, nah, like they own all of this. And I immediately was like, man, how can I meet them, speak to them, get to know them, and have an understanding of what brought them to this space. And so I really want to thank y'all for being so open because y'all only knew us through our connection to Justin. Mm-hmm. And so what I first would like for y'all to do is introduce yourselves and tell the B.U.I.L.D and their audience where you're from. So whoever wants to go first.
Jeanette, Osei. I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay.
Been in Texas since 95.
Okay.
Yeah.
95. So what brought you down here to Texas?
Work. I was working in small business lending. So the company that I worked for, I got a transfer to Texas.
Okay. And how long had you worked for that company?
I had been in small business lending. Well, my original background is in accounting.
Okay.
And I went into banking a couple of years after I graduated because I worked for a company in accounting, but being in the office, mundane day-to-day stuff didn't suit my personality. So I ended up getting into banking, and when I started working into small business, working with small business lending, it enabled me to meet a lot of different companies and help them with expanding their business or getting into business. And then I started thinking, man, why can't our people get this knowledge and know that it's not as hard as they think it is. So I started when I was transferred to Texas, my focus was minority, outreach to minorities to kind of get the small business lending numbers up in the minority community. So that was my focus. And actually, while doing that, that's how I met him.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah, he was one of my customers.
Okay.
He was a customer.
All right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's how I met him. And so ended up, after the project was funded, that's when we started dating. There was no conflict.
Business first. I feel it.
I just want to make that clear. There was no conflict.
I feel it. I mean, you have to be. And what about you, sir?
Yeah, my name is Josiah Osei. Everybody call me Joe Osei.
Okay.
Originally from Ghana, West Africa. I came to United States in 1980 to Wisconsin, and then came to visit a friend in Houston in 1981, and then moved to Houston in 1981. And I've lived in Houston since 1981.
Okay.
In my school days, I was working for 7-Eleven. Worked for 7-Eleven when I was in school. And from 7-Eleven, I joined a group of guys that at the time were starting to start their own convenience store business. They were working for Tenneco. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Tenneco. Tenneco was an oil company, and they also do, I think, some defense contracting job with a DOD.
Okay.
So those guys were starting their own company, and they approached me if I would join them. So I took the opportunity to join them, and the company was Time-Wise Food Stores. You look around town, there's a lot. Yeah, the parent company name is Landmark Industries.
Okay.
When I started with them, they had only 3 stores. One was on OST and Scott. There was one on 7550 Homestead Road. And the other one was in Hempstead, Texas. So that's when I dove into the world of convenience stores, and back then in 1985. I worked with that company for 10 years and decided that I want to go out and do something on my own. One of the motivating factors was money. Let me tell you. I sit down and, I started as a store manager, became a regional manager for them. So when I add my numbers at the end of quarter every time, and I look at the amount that I'm being paid, I sat down and said, I'm making all this money for these guys. That's how I'm being paid. Even though at the time, so very young, was very handsome, wasn't bad for what they're paying me. The money wasn't bad, but I felt that I could do better. So 1995, I left them and actually started building my very own store on the corner of Cullen and Holloway.
Yeah.
Right next door to Watkins Grocery.
Indeed.
If you're familiar with Cullen.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely.
And from that one, we did extremely well. We had the support of the neighborhood. We actually was very active with the neighborhood, with the kids, with the rappers then that came from the neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood knew Josiah. The entire neighborhood. You couldn't even come to my location. It was typical for people to go to convenience stores and rob them. The store was nothing like that happened.
You had respect in the neighborhood.
Yes. Never happened once.
So, I've had conversations with y'all prior to this. And I really want to ask, because based on those conversations, y'all have such a strong sense of community. Can you explain where that comes from and how you've been able to make that stand the test of time even into 2020?
I'll chime in on that. My wife is from a family of 9. I'm from a family of 9.
Wow, okay.
That's a big family.
Yeah.
They have 6 girls and 3 boys. And I have 6 boys and 3 girls.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest in my family. She is in the middle somewhere. And as you are aware of, if you come from a big family, the sense of family always is very important to you. Growing up, my dad had a little, back in Ghana, he had a what do you call a pharmaceutical store. Over there, they call it drugstore. You go and buy your regular needs like vitamins and Advils and whatnot. So the entire neighborhood, everybody came to you were taught to treat the neighbors as your own, as like you treat your own. So I had that in me probably before I even went to the convenience store business. She had that growing a big family, how to deal with people and treat them well. So it was extremely important to me that anybody that came to one of our stores should feel at home, regardless. After all, we have had people in our neighborhood go to stores, and immediately you walk in there, you look at like you come to steal something. They look at you like you're a thief.
Well,
and for me being a
let me chime in on that. Cause see, that convenience store that you own on the corner of Cullen and Holloway, the people that now occupy that store look at people that look like us in that manner.
Yes.
So I can imagine the folks who are still in that neighborhood who knew Mr. Osei would compare it like night and day.
Yes.
With regards to the people that come into our neighborhoods that don't look like us, that don't treat us like family, that don't see themselves when they look at us, and treat us differently. So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, and so and the same thing, I think it's the generation too, because when we were growing up in our generation, it was just a lot more respect for people, and I don't think we get a lot of that and from the young people growing up now, because I'm not saying it's partly it's the owners, but also I think partly it's the kids growing up too now, because if they're not taught that, hey, when you go in the store, you respect the people that own the store, because that's their livelihood.
Right.
So, and we were taught that. We were taught to respect our teachers. We were taught to respect all elders. We were taught to respect, the police, everybody. So, and I think a lot of that is gone, like when an adult, if you were out on the street and an adult told you, hey, stop talking like that or whatever,
You respect that.
you respect it. Yes, ma'am, and you shut up. Now, you get, who you talking to? You're not my mom or whatever, and you looking like you're afraid to.
The tribe mentality in the community.
Exactly, it's gone. It's gone, and that's unfortunate, because it helped us, because we were afraid to do something in our neighborhood, because we grew up in a neighborhood that looked out for each other, and because in Chicago, it's people big cities. Chicago is very segregated. And black people live in one neighborhood, Polish people live in one neighborhood, Mexicans live in their own neighborhood. So in our neighborhood, everybody kind of looked out for each other. And so everybody knew each other. We all played together. There's no cable and internet and all that. So you went outside and played. So that sense of community, that's what you lived for. And so, we miss that, and we try to, still foster that, wherever we go. Even when we build a shopping center or a store and we lease it out or we sell it, we still have a connection to it, because we supply the fuel to those stores. So we try to, the guys that lease from us or whatever, we try to tell them, hey, you have to treat the people in the neighborhood with respect. They're coming to spend their money there. Yeah, we know that, it's a hard business, because when we first finished this shopping center, we ran the store, the Bolero, for like, how many months? Like 3 months or 4 months. And man, it was a challenge, because he hadn't done it he hadn't actually ran the store
in the store
in a while. you know, because we focus more on the fuel business and construction. And man, it was a rude awakening, you know, as to how much things had changed.
Right.
And you know, we loved it, and we loved our customer. The biggest challenge was employees. You know.
Really?
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, yeah. You know,
I mean, yeah, you know, they always say, you know, good help is hard to find.
it is definitely hard to find. You know, because that, like what I was, you know, bringing up earlier about, you know, our generation now coming up, you know, is they want to get paid, but they don't want to work. You know.
Facts. Everybody wants to find the easiest route to a whole bunch of money.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, I remember when I first started working, minimum wage back then was $2.10. Yeah, $1.85 or $2.10.
You can't even buy a stack at your convenience store.
I know. and you worked hard for that. You
Yeah.
worked hard for that. And you know, I know, you know, economy is different, and you know, inflation and all that stuff. But when I think about, you know, how far, you know, we came when we first started working, and some of the young people that, you know, you want to give an opportunity and you try to teach them work ethics, and it's like, man, you know, they want to talk and look at their phone all day, and then when you tell them something, they get an attitude. They want to have their friends coming up to the job and talking to them, and I'm like, you can't do that, you know? You know, and then want to give you lip. So that was the, you know, the customer part was easy compared to.
Right. The
Managing
new generation
employees,
of young workers. Right?
Exactly.
That kind of threw you off. Like,
Yeah.
Work
Yeah.
ethic is different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Focus is completely non-existent.
Yeah, because when he first started, you know, people were happy to have a job. You know, it's like, man, you know.
Because
Yeah.
not typically at that time, you know, if you go to even convenience stores, you know, they have a lot of Hispanics, or not a lot of black kids. They get a job, you know, 18-year-old or 17-year-old. In the neighborhood, I always have at least, it was always my motto to get a couple of kids from the neighborhood, because they know the neighborhood, they know all the bad guys. That's my own trick. That I need people in the neighborhood that know who the bad guys, who the good people are, so that they can educate me how to deal with some of these people when they come to the store. And think about it. If I was raised and groomed and raised up in this neighborhood, okay, and most of the customers that come into the store is from this neighborhood. Do you think if you went to school with Peter or Paul or Agnes or whatever the person's name is, if the person is standing behind the counter, are you going to come and rob them? No, because you know them.
Right.
You know, and that's what, you know, I don't think people realize. You know, I think in any neighborhood that you do business at, you're going to find at least 2 or 3 good people. Westgate, I mean, I'm talking about Westgate scenario. They will do what you want them to do for what the, you know, pay schedule is. You know, and I think part of the problem with these, you know, and I guess maybe they don't feel comfortable. You get a Pakistani or somebody for different race go and open the store. It takes them a while, or they don't feel comfortable with the people in the neighborhood. They don't do enough of a hard work to find a good person
Right.
in the neighborhood. They don't make the effort. They will give somebody a chance and they screw up, and that's it. I've gave several people chances. They screw up. I still want to find the next good one. You know, and don't want them to stay just to be a cashier, or I want them to have to be a manager in one of my stores. And that's how I operate it.
So, what was it about you guys' upbringing that cultivated this entrepreneurial spirit?
On my side, you know, I
Your
think
mom.
it's from my mom. My dad, you know, worked for the government hospital. Never made money. No, seriously. My mom always had more money than my dad.
Right.
All the time. My mom was a trader.
She was a hustler.
You know, my mom
Well,
was
she is a hustler. I would say
She
she's
would
still
go to
alive.
the, you know, in Ghana, she's still alive. She would go to the countryside You know, we live in the city, bring food from the countryside and sell it to people, whatever goods that is. And when he's going to the countryside, he would take spices like salt, sugar, you know, to them in exchange for to bring something else. So my mom was always selling something. You know, I could remember up to the age of 13, I went to all boys boarding school. Up to the age of 12, 13, my mother was, I always say that's why I didn't get any taller.
Yeah.
You put stuff on me and I'll go around and sell it before I go to school in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a chore. Yeah. It's a chore that I have to. Every morning. It's me, my sisters behind me, and I think about 2 or 3 of us. You get up 5 o'clock in the morning because you have to be in school by 8. You have to go and sell your stuff, come home, get ready to go to school. So entrepreneurship was in me way from, you know, a young age, you know. And I also look at where we came from, where I came from. My dad worked for the university hospital. I thought I put it on silent, actually. Yeah. My dad worked for the university hospital, and I look at it and say, hey, 2 bedrooms. When I was leaving Ghana, my parents have 6 kids. My parents share 1 bedroom. The rest of the kids, sometimes my dad's nephews, get up in the morning, you have to lay a mat and lay down. People trampling over you when they get up. And I told myself, I want to do better. I really want to do better. So when I came to America, it was like a gold mine to me. But I also figured out that you have to really work very hard if you want to make money in America.
Did that make did that play a factor in the educational route that you took in terms of going like your college years and stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say it did play, you know, a factor into it. But my main goal is to do something to make money. Whatever I was doing, I had to make some money. You know.
I feel it.
Yes, I had to make some money because from the standpoint back there, you know, my dad might be a middle class, but you know, when I came here, I noticed we were very poor, extremely poor. The way life was in Ghana was a little bit different. But when I measured it, I said, man, we really, because when I came to US, people that actually even are poor, were on welfare and stuff like that, you go to their house, their kids have their own beds. Even back then in 1980s, you know, places like Milwaukee, they have all these kinds of flats of townhouses. You go, you do places, you go in there, if a parent have a 3-bedroom, you know, you have 2 kids or something, everybody have their own bed that they slept on. I never slept on the bed of my own before I left Ghana. The only time I slept on the bed of my own is when I went to high school. I went to a boarding school that I had a bed that the school provided.
Wow. What about you, Ms. Jeanette? Like, what about your upbringing?
I think for some reason, when I look back now, when growing up, I never thought I was poor because we always had what we needed. But you know, I always felt like I wanted to do better than my parents. And when I went to college, my major was in accounting. I started out working for a company doing accounting, and then I just, like I said, that wasn't. After probably about 4 or 5 years, I realized that wasn't for me, and I started getting into small business lending. And while in that, I was like, man, I could do this. I was telling everybody else how to expand their business and grow their business, or analyzing their business, and I'm like, man, I can do this for myself. So I quit my job, and that's when I bought a Baskin Robbins franchise in Chicago. You know, ice cream in cold Chicago.
I was like, man, people eat ice cream like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not in the wintertime so much, but you know, it was like in the early 90s, around the time when the recession hit, the first recession hit, so, you know, things didn't work out so well. So I went back into Linden and then, you know, doing the same thing, analyzing small businesses or whatever. And so I was like, man, I got the opportunity to come to Texas, and I started again saying, man, you know, instead of being on the retail side of it, let me get on the investment side of it, you know, and that's how you know, when I met him and helping him grow his businesses, then I said, you know, hey, you know, I need to start doing some of this on my own.
Right.
So we started doing projects together, and, you know, the rest is history.
So how does your relationship work since you guys work together? You know what I mean? And you own all of these businesses together. Does that create or cause like conflict within like your relationship on a personal level when you guys disagree with business decisions or things that are coming up within like your empire? Because I own a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I can tell by the look on your face when I started asking that. You were like, yeah.
It does. It does.
Because we have two, and I guess it works because we have two different. I'm more conservative by nature, and he's always upside, and I'm like, okay, upside, but there's the downside, and I have to always remind him of the downside. Yeah, if this works, great, but if it doesn't work, this is what could could happen. And then as you get older, you want to look at more at that downside more, because you don't want to, you know, take a turn, you know, in the other direction, and you know, getting up there in age. So that's the biggest conflict, to kind of reel him in sometimes on that, you know, this may not work.
let me chime in a bit. You know, when it's I probably look at life of coming from nothing. So I guess sometimes that's, you know, maybe my aggressiveness. I say, I have nothing, and I've done something. So when I come back to nothing, what difference does it make?
She's like, no, I'm not trying to go back.
Exactly. That's always my opinion. Is like,
yes.
I don't want to go back.
Right.
You know.
I'm comfortable with this lifestyle.
Yes.
Right.
Within
Yes.
Right. And his thing is, but if it works, you know, that's all his attitude. But if it works, and I'm like, but if it doesn't, then, you know.
So with that, do you guys sometimes just decide, you like, you know what, I'm gonna do this on my own? Do you have certain things that are separate from what you guys do collectively?
Not from the business standpoint, because I don't always agree with the direction that he's going in. I'll follow on the business side, but to have peace of mind, I say, I carved out a little bit for myself and say, okay, you know, so if anything goes haywire, I'm okay.
I'm with it.
You know, I got my little stash over here. So I'm okay. So that's the only way I have when he does stuff that I don't agree with. That's my peace of mind is, you know.
If all else fails.
All else fails, I'm going to be okay.
And I'll still reach out to that.
Yeah, he'll sit there and he'll have all these irons over there, and he'll be like,